Hi, everybody. Can everyone hear me? I hope. I can see already people have submitted a lot of things in the chat. To everyone who does not know me and who does not know who we are, I am Annie. I represent the North American headquarters here in Los Angeles, California for Hubsan Official. We are alive. Of course, we're alive. Sorry. We are live for the live stream Q&A. As a reminder, as stated in the chat, we will not, we welcome pretty much any question you would like to ask. Just be polite about it, and please do not spam. The more you spam, the less likely we'll be able to get to other questions, and we would like to accommodate as many as possible within this hour and a half live stream. Any troll leader on the channel watching the chat, and or to other members of the chat or to people watching this live stream will not be tolerated. We will not hesitate to time people out who are just not being conducive to the environment to cover before we get to the pre-submissions or the questions that were submitted a month ahead of time when we first made the live stream announcement. So here we go. And to all our Brazilian clients who are also here, we appreciate that as well. I will cover your question that was in the chat in a bit during the pre-submission question round after I've gotten those over with. So one moment. Okay, so on my list of things that I want to mention first. Number one, you guys might have noticed that we have a new video on our Hubsan official channel, which is where we're live streaming from, by the way. It is the H123D release. And I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about it. Of all the questions that I think we're going to get, namely about acro mode, is there going to be, new goggles, etc., etc. I can only release 2 bits of information on that particular release right now, and that is, number 1, the motors are brushless, and number 2, there will be a new transmitter, but there's nothing else I can say about the transmitter. We want to leave a little bit of room for ambiguity, so there's a little bit more anticipation for people. It will be a pretty sweet little release. As you can tell, we've put a lot of thought into the build, and I feel like people might really, really enjoy it, especially the people who have already been enjoying the Storm. I know that the brushed motors on the Storm have been a bit of an area of contention, and so has the request for acro mode. And we have already submitted those comments to R&D. It is up to them to see if they would like to implement the advice given to them through the customer support channel. So that's the 123D. Second, and this is probably one of the most important things that I want to emphasize in the live stream today. While I am conducting live streams, at least, I will never cover firmware, because firmware is a very tricky subject, and we don't like to rush those things. We don't like to rush that as a topic. The more you rush something like firmware, the worse it gets, pressure-wise and quality-wise. You have to go through a lot of testing on any specific set of firmware, not only by our R&D and QC team, but also by a client base that have very graciously volunteered their time, effort, and faith in the firmware to test it. So as a courtesy to both R&D, to both the engineering team, as well as our user base, that includes the people who are not testing, we will not say anything about firmware on live streams, just so that we can keep a little bit of that pressure off them so that they can do as good a job as they can releasing versions that will benefit you more in the long run. Third thing I would like to announce is Hubsan Forums. We officially have forums on the Hubsan official website. I will post the link to that in the perhaps the status subsequent to this live stream. If you have any questions directly for us or like to discuss something directly with us, that's perhaps the best channel now to do it at, now that we have forum records to go off of. So please do visit us at our official forums. We very much appreciate it. Fourth thing I would like to mention, a shout out to the Hubsan QC Help and Support group headed by Christopher Wade. We would like to thank them as well as the H501S quadcopter and H501, H502, H122D group headed by Brian Young. Both of those groups are very active. And we also have a lot of different groups internationally as well. We have the Italian group headed by Luca, and we also have the Brazilian groups headed by our Brazilian cohorts, many of whom are here today in our live chat. A shout out to you, and we very much appreciate we would not be able to do it if it weren't for you guys, and we would not be here if it weren't for you guys. So we want to give you that shout out, hopefully on every single live stream and event that we do. At least from the Los Angeles headquarters. We are setting up a Netherlands headquarters right now. They are almost able to go into full operation. Might take another 2 to 3 months, but from what I've heard, they're already almost fully staffed. So I might be wrong on that part, might be. So don't take my word completely for it there, but from what I've heard, they are getting pretty close to pre-release. So you might hear from them as well, just because we understand that there are a lot of people who are not in the United States who want to attend events like these. Unfortunately, we can't clone ourselves. I can't clone myself and fly over to Europe within the span of a couple of hours. And although I wish that we could provide, unlimited support, we are a fairly big company, but it is difficult. We do still have our limits. It's difficult for us to cover every single quadrant as possible, which is why we have now 4 to 5 different main channels of support. The first being service@hubsan.com, which is our email inbox. The second being our Facebook account at Hubsan001 is the handle on that particular account. We also have, as you know, the Hubsan official YouTube channel, as well as now the Hubsan official forums. I highly recommend the forums again for direct support. Do keep in mind that we are kind of limited in terms of manpower at times, as well as just the time difference. So it might take us around 24 hours on the forums to get back to you, but we will get back to you as soon as we can. And so as a final reminder, I will reiterate any inappropriate comments or rude commentators or trolling will be monitored and taken off the Hubsan chat here during the live stream. And we deeply again appreciate the people who are here live. Hello, everybody. Hello. God, there's a lot of comments. Hold on. There is a lot. Yes, good to be here. Good to see you guys. Hello, everybody. Yes. Yeah, everybody's saying hello. Yes. Again, thank you to all of you for being here. We appreciate it. And here we go. We're going to list the questions. I will get to, again, I will get to the questions on the chat after I cover the questions that were pre-submitted on the Hubsan page when we made the announcement. So be patient. Please do not spam the questions. I will go to the beginning of the chat as soon as I can finish the list. So here we go. Here's the list. So back to the status update list I have here. It says, why I can't get service. That's what the client said. Why can't I get service? Well, I don't know. We have 4 different channels. If you can't find any one of us on 1 to 2, please try the other ones as well. And we will do our best to get back to you. Do keep in mind, if you email us, we usually oscillate around the 72 business hour response policy. I personally get back to emails as soon as I can in around 2 days right now. We are experiencing a big inflow because Shally is out of the office, and so we don't have as many people to cover emails or support in general, but we are still managing to get to things, assuming that we can receive them. So if you do not get a response within, I'd say 2 to 3 days from service@hubsan.com, please PM the official Hubsan page here on Facebook. And again, I will reiterate this. We do have the Hubsan Forums now. So do visit the official Hubsan website at www.hubsan.com. Scroll down to forums, click, and we also have a representative there moderating the forums. Lots of channels, guys. We don't have as many people, but we do have a lot of channels, and we do check all of them. So make full use of it. So it looks like I have another question here. So there is a client who pre-submitted a question about different parts inside of the aircraft packages. I don't know if you have experienced this with other manufacturers, but it is fairly common for manufacturers in general to try and swap out parts that we believe will be more efficient or better. Now, not all of those calls will be absolutely correct. We are, after all, human. So there will be, as some people who have bought the 501S have noted, there have been some product changes with the chargers, especially. And we had attempted to switch to another type of charger in the past, but we have found out that it was just not working well. We were getting far too high defect rates. So what we had to do was switch back to the original ones that we had initially supplied the H501S package with. They had come up with a secondary upgrade to that. And do keep in mind that due to the price restraint, the price range, the price tier you're buying the 501S for, there is going to be a certain attrition rate with the charger. And while I am sorry about that, do keep in mind that good chargers with much lower attrition rates and higher levels of quality will be much more expensive. So unless you are willing to pay up to $60 to $100 more per aircraft, it's honestly, the charger you're getting inside the package is going to be one of the best within the price range that you're going to get. If you have any other questions about differing parts, I don't think there's many other differing parts, honestly, in the packages other than the chargers. So other than that, I think it's going to be pretty standard. Now I have one comment here saying, which chargers? That's because the switch happened quite a long time ago. We haven't really changed we haven't really changed the chargers or any other parts inside the packaging since then. So I wanted to cover that just in case people still had complaints about it. Okay, next question. When is Annie going to make more videos? Does this count? I think it counts. It's going to be recorded anyway, so here we go. On a Hubsan H501S, why is it necessary to calibrate each and every time you fly? This was answered by one of our veteran pilots, someone who's stuck with us for quite a few years. And again, we thank all of you veteran pilots or pirates. You guys know who you are. But shout out to the person who responded, firmware is being tested that won't require compass calibration every time you fly. You guys might be asking why it's taken a long time. Again, it's difficult to come out. It's always difficult to come out with firmware, and I'm not going to go into the details of it. Point being that we have been trying to work on giving the capability of the aircraft to not calibrate. However, I will mention again, depending on whether or not it'll work, we may or may not release it. It's not something that we want to lead to chance. We had tried before to release firmware that would allow you to not calibrate, and that was a disaster, which is why we are taking a very cautious approach to this particular aircraft. Normally speaking, if you were to have an answer from R&D about why it is necessary to calibrate each and every time you fly, it is because when the H501S was initially conceived, we designed a compass that would have to be sort of reset in terms of sensing where the true north is in every single location. Granted, there are protocols out there in the industry that do not allow you to do this, but honestly, currently speaking, within the 501S framework, we aren't really finding too much of a good foothold there to introduce it on a more consistent basis. So for the consistency of the aircraft, for the sake of just not releasing something that'll screw everybody's aircraft up, we still have not introduced the auto calibrate function. So for now, it is necessary to calibrate each and every time you fly, just to, set the compass up for operation. If it changes in the future, we will gladly introduce that change if and only if it works consistently and without problems. So that's your answer there. Okay. What's the next question? Okay, so I have here a little message about aircraft that get lost, or I'd like to say, quote unquote, fly away. Now, I would like to address first the fact that you are flying something, you are dealing with something that flies, and you are dealing with something that not only flies, but is also connected by an invisible connection that you cannot physically control. So my first response to that is, it's not necessarily your fault. It is also not necessarily the drone's fault, because there are too many frequencies that can be monitored by any one company that are available out here in the world. You have different countries running different GPS systems. You have different manufacturers or different industries outputting different things in the air, so to speak. And it's not something that you can absolutely control. Let's not even mention Mother Nature. Wind is one of the things. Wind can be still at lower elevations and extremely high at others. And also we have different electromagnetic causes around the globe as well. I am going to say, though, I do understand the concern for this particular topic, just because it is something that you not necessarily can control. And one of the reasons we introduced the return to home failsafe upon loss of connection, in order to, try and counter as many of these interference-based causes as possible. Do keep in mind, though, there is a component of GPS flight that is completely out of our control, and that is whether or not the satellites on a particular day used for GPS systems for a particular country, whether Russia, China, United States, et cetera, are properly positioned or in optimal or outputting optimal signals for a particular GPS system, and that is just something you cannot control. Not to mention all the causes, all the things that might be affecting them, not just positioning wise up there in outer space. So that is a big cause from what I've heard, especially from people who have been doing this for some time. That's something that I've heard is really just crap for GPS accuracy. You might have noticed it in terms of other GPS systems, when you turn on Google Maps and for some reason the location of where you're trying to get is slightly different from where exactly the true location is. That's a very low key. That's a very mild example of what I'm talking about, general inaccuracy. As for other things, you know, errors in terms of in terms of data coming, just circulating throughout the system. Honestly, it's nothing's going to be perfect, but so far I think it has been not bad in terms of in terms of us being able to prevent or, you know, redirect those things from happening. And there's also one other thing I'd like to cover on that topic is if you do have the misfortune of losing your aircraft, please take a picture of the transmitter screen before you shut it off in an attempt to get it back or return to home. You can use those GPS coordinates to find the aircraft just in case for some reason the fail-safe doesn't work, either because of physical obstacles, battery voltage, or just something else that we might not be able to, you know, find out. So yeah, that's what I have to say on the topic. I've seen a lot of different cases, so having to do a lot of that a lot of that research myself, as well as ask R&D. That's what I've pretty much come up with. If you have any other questions, I would recommend asking some of the more veteran pilots as well as us. We do have a good source for the information from what we've experienced, but keep in mind also that we are people as well. So if you consult other people in the community, even pilots from other, you know, who fly with other manufacturer aircraft, I think you will also find a lot more information there as well. So yeah, let's move on to the next question. That was a long one to answer. Planning on making any folding drones? I will let I'm not exactly allowed to address that. I'll just leave it at that. But all I can say is that you guys might not be disappointed on that front. Okay, new products. H123D, guys, H123D. You guys were yelling for a brushless racer. That's it. Okay. Is it possible to make the firmware upgrade process more user-friendly? Again, we have suggested that. I can't say I have any information on that. So, but I do understand. We do understand. Trust me. It can be a real trip for the beginners. So I will once again send that information over to them. Fortunately, I don't have anything there. Firmware upgrades through H122D, again, not covering firmware in detail. All right. One of the first thing most pilots do is upgrade to an external antenna. So why have Hubsan not picked up on this and designed it in as standard? Well, besides the H901A, which is also known quite popularly as the advanced transmitter, many of our transmitters now, especially the new ones coming out, do have antennas. The HT011A, let me go grab it. Okay, so this little guy right here, for example, does have an antenna. It does not use a 5.8 frequency. It does not use a 2.4 frequency, but it does use a 5.8 and binds the 5.8 connection from your No, I said that wrong. Why am I, God, my brain. Okay, this does have a 2.4 frequency. Good God, what am I thinking? I was thinking of the video goggles that you can mine to this to get FPV with telemetry on it from your aircraft. But yeah, our transmitters nowadays, especially the newer ones coming out, will have antennas. So no modification kit really needed. And also you had the H906A, which is also known as the advanced transmitter that does have external antennas as well. No need for a kit. Psh, it's already pre-installed. Anyway, next question. Will Hubsan release an H501S that has a better camera that allows tilt and anti-vibrations? I'm not sure about 501S. I don't think so. I don't know. I'm just going to say I don't know on the subject of H501S, but in terms of the gimbal, of a gimbaled camera, let's just say that R&D has been listening on that front. Next question. Why are only some countries allowed to buy directly from the Hubsan websites? Makes it hard and expensive to maintain our birds. Again, we hear you on that, which is why we have introduced the Netherlands Technical Support Office, and we're planning on expanding further out into the globe. Again, even though we are a fairly big company, we still have our limitations, and it takes a lot, I mean a lot of money, work, time, personnel to be able to run a multinational operation. So again, honestly, you guys have no idea how much a technical support team talks about it. We're like, dude, these guys need help. The only problem is that where else are we going to ask people to send their aircraft? It's not like we have an entire system yet. It's still in its beginnings and we're establishing it. But we do feel you on the parts side of things, which is why we always tell you to email us at service@hubsan.com so that we can redirect you to representatives, just in case you are in some place like South Africa where we don't have a base of operations yet, or Australia or New Zealand. I mean, it's the nature of being on this globe. We really hear you guys on that, and believe us when we say that management hears you on that too, which is why we established the US office. Keep in mind, we're coming up on 2 years old the next month, and the Netherlands office is about ready to open. So we are doing our best. It's not easy. It is not easy. We are people too. So yeah. Next question. Interesting. I've covered almost all of them. Let me check the shares. As I remember, there's one or two, I think 2 to 3 questions on the shares that are really that I noted that people wanted to ask. Please, can we have date timestamp and maybe even geotag on our photos and videos on the H501SS? Okay, so again, we've already addressed this with R&D. For some reason, they haven't yet implemented it on the non-Wi-Fi versions. However, this is my advice. This little guy is not very expensive. My advice is to use an H501A with the X-Hubsan application for now if you want a date timestamp and geotag. Because on the application, especially with the latest fixes, you'll be able to get footprints and exact time and even logs of a specific flight. I've already noted down all the issues regarding those on a change log or a input log for R&D and sent it to them. So they should be in the know of that situation. As of right now, we don't have GeoTag on the SS, but on the A, which is pretty much exactly like the H501SS, except it is Wi-Fi compatible. If you use the application along with the transmitter like this, you will have GeoTag and exact date timestamp. I've flown with this too. You're not going to regret it. It's a nice piece of equipment. I don't say that lightly too. All right, next question. Will the storm frame and accessories be available as spare parts so we can build our own quad with the electronics that we want? I hate having to sit and wait for firmware fixes, lack of adjustability. It's almost like having an iPhone. Good comment. In terms of the question with frame and accessories, yes, they will be available. We like to provide access to as many, of the user-friendly components to the public as possible, and the frame and the accessories will be available. I mean, if it's listed on the accessories list on the back of one of our manuals, more likely than not, it will be available. If it's not available on the official Hubsan website, please just give us an email, and we will be able to address it there. Whether it be something that we will have to go ahead and put live, or if it's just something that is not as visible on the website, we can redirect you to it. But yeah, they will be available. Once the 123D jet comes out, those components will be available too. Okay. So, this question is a good one. Is there any difference between the goggles on the video for the H501S and goggles that we've shown and the goggles included with H122D? Very slight. And again, kudos to the person who asked this, because he said in parentheses, other than the antenna. Other than the antenna, nothing else different. In fact, I received news from R&D that even the antenna, there's a slight difference between the two. The panel antenna is going to be slightly stronger than the dipole, but really, there's not much difference. You can get almost the same amount of juice that you get from either antenna. Other than that, the FPV goggles are one and the same. They're not gonna be different. And if you're really all that much worried about the difference, I would encourage you to email us first ahead of time to confirm several things and to prevent, any sort of misunderstandings. But no difference. The antenna, slightly different. Shape definitely different, and the way, of course, that it receives signal is going to be different, but doesn't really affect your operation of it. I had one person here write one phrase: racing quads. Did we answer your question this morning with the release of the 123D video? Haha. Okay, let me come through the pre-submissions and see if there's anything else that we need to address. No, that's it for the pre-submissions. We got through that pretty quickly. Less than half an hour. So let me go and get back to the top of the chat and see what questions we can answer here. Starting from the top. I beg of you to start selling your products in Brazil. We have not demonstrated here. So on that part, I don't have much information. I apologize. I'm not very well connected with sales. I'm much better connected with QC. And also to an extent R&D, because I do have several friends there, but I don't have any information on sales. I will mention this to the sales manager though. I do know, I'm not in constant contact with her. And not to mention, it would not be my place to ask about those things because I simply don't work in sales. But I can definitely put that in for you guys and ask about it. So I do understand about the Brazil part. I think it might be because quads in general are just, we're in the northern hemisphere. So our coverage, naturally speaking, as humans, our coverage of where we are and where we're near to is going to be much bigger. But if you guys really like, point being is that all of you guys down in the southern hemisphere who also fly our aircraft, also deserve access to it. So I'm going to go ahead and put that through to the people that I know in sales. All right, next question. Very long. Any details / clues on non-racing drone releases in June and in gimbal or other picture stabilized version of the AH501X series would be great. From all what I know and what I'm allowed to release at the moment, all of the releases that are non-drone in the later part, in say summer and the later part of this year, are all related to transmitters. Now keep in mind, I am all the way here in the United States. I am a mere tech support rep who was less reluctant than the others to show her face on camera. So, I mean, I don't think there's going to be, I don't know about the gimbal part, honestly. And goodness knows I've mentioned it enough times for them to really feel like as though I'm harrying them and giving them a headache. But all of the non-racing drone releases that I know of are transmitter, and of course the racing, the goggles that you guys already know of. All the other non-drone releases are going to be transmitter related. And again, that question about external antennas, we're addressing those. When will this new drone launch? Isn't that the prize question? I don't know. That's one of the things I apologize. I'm not in sales. But from what I have seen, they are not very far away from it. They're just going through, I think, the last testing contingencies. Everything else is ready. And I do know that currently speaking with this particular racer, they would not leak it if they were not confident about its release date. So I'm guessing 2 to 3 months. 2 to 3 months. Have someone going crazy about the 123D. 3-inch drive blade, new carbon frame, brushless, new transmitter, new ESCs, and the green color on the 123D is sick. Yes, I agree. Are we going to get more H501S upgrades? Can't cover that. That particular part, no, I won't get into it. It's just too much. Alrighty. You need a wingman to keep up. I wish. Everybody else is busy. We distribute Hubsan in Thailand. Thank you. We appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. Hi, thank you for your live stream. I purchased an H216A, and for the most part, am quite happy. Often the drone loses contact with the controller. May this be addressed in the future? Yes, we have seen some recurrent issues with the Bluetooth transmitter connection, and that I am submitting to R&D this week because we just started getting the cases in for that. And on that particular front, yes, we will do our best to make sure R&D does address that. Otherwise, we've also seen quite a few good cases from the HD009. So again, should you have any problems with that, please email us at service@hubsan.com or post it to the Hubsan Forums. If you have these problems, do post it to the Hubsan Forums. It'll be even, an even faster channel than going through, for example, the USA office, because then we would have to, go through the language barrier, go through the Chinese office. If you post directly to the forums, R&D has someone on there. So we have someone on there directly from the Chinese office. So she's able to directly get information over there. But yes, we have heard of that, and we will be addressing that either by getting R&D on the case and seeing if it's something that can be changed in the manufacturing process, or by providing a nice the resolution for it, whatever it is, because over here we're not 100% sure exactly what is going on inside the transmitter, if it's internal interference, around the transmitter. Say you've got your hands on the transmitter, it blocks the Bluetooth signal, etc., etc. We have to go through that first and determine exactly what it is before we can administer fixes, or else the fix would be ineffectual, and I don't think you guys would like that. So we have heard of that, and we will do our best to get down to it as soon as possible. Might be a little more difficult now that Shally's not in the house, but I shall see to it that R&D knows about it and we start investigating it. I hope that there are people willing to send their transmitters in so that we can also take them apart. We will always have to take apart, a piece in order to determine, assuming that it is hardware, that what exactly the component is that is failing. So that's my answer to that. Okay. Issue on standard transmitter causing motor stalls while holding the throttle down and right stick in any direction. I'm gonna have to ask R&D about that, because there's only one thing that I've heard of in terms of like trying to keep the aircraft from flying, or from, I think, trying to fly up too quickly by holding the throttle all the way down. That is partially operational. So I will say their R&D might say it that way. But if there's an issue in terms of motor stall while holding the throttle down and the right stick in a particular direction, if again, whoever posted this could send us a short video over the Hubsan official chat to see, on Facebook, to see if we can get an explanation, then we'll be able to answer that question. So, and please send us a video of that with you operating, showing your operation of the joystick channels, as well as how the aircraft reacts, then we will be able to give you a clear answer on that. Otherwise, I really hesitate to answer that question without fully understanding what is being spoken of. What does Hubsan mean? Really? I don't know the answer to that question. From what I know, it is a phonetic spelling, or it is an English version of the phonetic name, which is originally in Chinese. The Chinese name is Ha Bosun, but most people on this globe would probably hear that and be like, so, I mean, the people who aren't in China, that is. And so Hubsan is the official, English version, Romanized version of that particular name. I've always bought Hubsan, but recently leaning towards smaller form factor drones like the Spark/Air. Will Hubsan have a direct competitor to those products soon? I will only say this because honestly, I'm not allowed to say anything on that front. My smile is worth 1,000 words on that topic. Again, I don't think, let's just say R&D has been listening, R&D of management have been listening on that topic a little more intently than most people have bargained for. Hopefully you heard that. Yes? Anyway, next question. I have an H502S and can't find firmware for the controller and drone motherboard or receiver. I have one thing to say to that. www.hubsan.com. Hover your mouse over support, or just click on support and then click on product support. You'll see it there. And this is the YouTube video for the motor stall issue. Thank you. I don't know what to call you, so I'm just going to say your username, DZ's Drone Reviews and Deals. Yes, I will look at that video soon and revert that information to R&D. Hopefully there will be an answer. If there is, okay, DZ, okay. Hopefully there is an answer, and we'll do our best to address it. Thank you. All right. I think that's all. Wow, that took less time than I thought. Oh, good question. Why do H501S motors rattle when you spin them a hand? Each sounds different. I even changed one to be on the safe side. So, these motors have bearings in them, and sometimes the bearings are just slightly off, not necessarily something that is bad. And our advice always is to, number one, fly the aircraft at a hover, do an initial test flight, forward, backwards, left, right, and then turn, and then let it hover. I would say at around 10 meters. If you find that the aircraft consistently drifts to a particular side, take note of that side, land the aircraft, do a horizontal or gyro calibration. If you don't know what that is, please visit the main Hubsan Facebook page. You will see a pinned post with a lot of tutorials in the description section. Scroll down to the horizontal/gyro calibration tutorial. Perform that calibration and then try flying just basic forwards, backwards, left, right. And if you're seeing a consistent drift, then there would be a problem with the noisy motor. But if there isn't, they're very reliable for some time. Even if the rattling, even if it sounds like it's weird, you'll still be good. And even some of the people who have been with us for some time, who have had the same quad for the longest time and have a little bit of the flight of the rattling that you hear on the motors from the bearings, honestly, there's not an issue with that. Yes, I just have another one ask me, do rattling motors affect flight efficiency on the H501S? No, man. I've flown a lot of these guys. I've flown a lot of these guys. Okay. What is the future of the H109S? It seems pretty neglected by Hubsan of late. So that's a good question. We're not discontinuing that aircraft anytime soon because there's still people who like it. As of right now, I'm pretty sure that you've noticed that the industry and the market has been heading towards smaller aircraft, which is why, and that's actually been the sort of underground trend in the industry. I've noticed even while DJI and Unique and Hubsan and Autel and all of the more major manufacturers, major players in the market have been releasing the bigger aircraft. So what we are doing is we are keeping up with it. We do have, for the longest time, I admit, due to the popularity of H501S, it's been too much having to keep up with all of the just the infancy of debuting that particular product. So admittedly, yes, we were not able to get to the H109S very much during that time period. However, right now we have managed to revamp some of the things on the H109S in terms of, especially in terms of firmware. There is, and for especially, and we had to do something for the South American market because of the magnetic inclination down there causing compass calibration issues because of the differences in the magnetic field and just the compass not being able to make sense of that. But we are determined to keep up with the basic necessities and the foundational necessities, even if we can't release actual hardware upgrades to the particular to give it more options. We have a lot of new products coming up soon, keep in mind. And although we understand that the people who fly the H109S really like it, and we are equally as determined to support in terms of basic functionality, I am not foreseeing any additional features added to the H109S as of the moment. And I am sorry to say that, but unfortunately that is out of my control. And with the demand in the market changing the way it is, as it is, H109S and other quads and its size class are not nearly as kept up with nowadays. Okay. H109S is my favorite. Better, more affordable aftermarket gimbals and better quality cameras for that drone would be great. Yes, I understand. I do understand about that, and I will drop a line by R&D for that. Just because I feel like, you know, even if we can only allocate our resources to so much, it's always never for a lack of trying. And we can and will always, you know, devote, you know, at least try and address it, even if we can't 100% put it into motion. Fortunately, that's the nature of things. You have to compromise. No problem. I know we'd sell a lot of cameras to H109 users if we do. We just want to make sure that we are allocating our time and energy to things that we can keep up with. Because, you know, cameras change by the day. GoPro comes out with a new model every couple of months. I don't know. I don't keep up with GoPro. Pardon. All right. So live broadcast in Spanish, please. So here's the thing. If we can free up the Spanish speaker who represents technical support here in the Los Angeles office, yes, we can do our best to do that. I speak Spanish as well, but not nearly as well as she, of course. So, and I don't know if you guys would be able to understand my accent. I learned in Argentina, so it would be a little bit weird. And plus, I don't want to embarrass myself. I always feel a little bit insecure speaking in Spanish in front of other people, unless I know people better, then it's difficult. Okay, card falls out of my Hubsan H501S. Are you sure your card slot is fully functional? Is it broken? You might want to check on that, because usually the card slot, it doesn't click, but it holds the card quite securely. I would check on that card slot and also make sure that the card is actually going into the card slot and not in between the card slot and that little gap in between the slot and the shell. If you slip it in there, you stand a chance of losing your card in the quad, so be careful. All right. Need an app for my Microsoft Windows phone. Now that I have no idea. Now that that I will need to tell them. Now I would need to tell them. It's so far more of the people who have been using the application have been using it on iOS and Android. So being able to go through Microsoft Windows stuff, you'd have to be ready for a lot of bugs on that one. Again, we have to, we are a big company, but it's a little bit limited in terms of what we can do on the app. We're having to keep up with a lot of issues on the Android and iOS system as it is already. So unless we completely solve the problems on those two systems, we would not want to debut another one for the application. Sorry to disappoint you there, but it's honestly a subject of priorities and dealing with what we already have out in the market. Is there any way to make the H501S return to home to takeoff position rather than return to home to TX position without any modifications? No. A ghetto way you could do it is to cover the part of the transmitter where the GPS module is with your hand. And that will delay the amount of with the amount of satellites going to the GPS module on the TX, and that should sufficiently stop the aircraft or the transmitter from accumulating enough so that the aircraft would have to come, you know, to the transmitter instead of takeoff point. I would recommend that. Another thing you could do is to just shut off the transmitter for the return to home. So you can use the loss of flight control connection failsafe to do the return to home instead of using the return to home switch. That is another option. You would have to make sure, though, that your return to home point is set properly by conducting an early return to home, return to home test, flipping the GPS switch when you have 6 or more satellites on the drone, but not 6 or more on the TX, and seeing if it comes back home to the appropriate spot. Do that as a test, and then you can use the loss of flight control connection failsafe to do a return to home. All right, next. No problem. I'm going to reiterate again in response to a comment, and I think this is why the person monitoring the chat timed you out, is because what you were asking and what you are doing right now is a bit more on the troll side. I would say that your comments are quite valid. I wouldn't say they're invalid, but honestly, how you're asking them is not really appropriate for the situation. I will write them down and send them to R&D so that they can mull over the subjects. But the way you are asking those questions really is not appropriate for a live broadcast right now. All right, next questions. Anybody have any more questions as I've reached will the new birds be able to be used by older transmitters? That is a good question. So, used by older transmitters. Which new birds? It depends. Could you name me a specific model? Yes. Yes, because the 502T, like the 502T is, it's basically the same thing as the 502C, and their protocols, other than the hardware being different, that particular type of aircraft, in particular the 502 series, is, you know, it's still the same. It's still the same 2.4 configuration. So it should be able to be flown by an H901, 901A and H906A. You can do that. H501A FPV on a transmitter only works 30 feet and goes black. I've changed channels, no help. That is most likely a hardware problem, and I would highly recommend that you contact us directly for that. As I've said, I do have two tutorials on the matter on Back to Basics. If you go to our main Facebook page and click on the pinned post, what I would do is go ahead and search for the FPV troubleshooting. You're going to want to use part 2. I would recommend trying part 1 again, just in case. We don't want to leave that part, you know, just slightly unswept, because I have seen cases in which we thought it was a hardware problem and the aircraft would work just fine here in Los Angeles. So I honestly would I would do part 1 first on the FPV troubleshooting, then, you know, and then do the RSSI troubleshooting that I specify in part 2. Set information from the signal troubleshooting that you see in part 2, and we will just much more likely be able to address that. I recommend emailing us at service@hubsan.com. The representative servicing the Hubsan Facebook account is a little bit more overwhelmed right now. She's a little bit new, very well trained by Shally, but I recommend you email us with that information, because it's going to have to go to email anyway if it's a hardware problem. No problem, John. And what is the transmitter I showed earlier? Curious, huh? This is also known as the HT011A. I posted a couple of videos on this previously back. If you like, I can also post them again. This very useful little guy. You can bind it to pretty much any 2.4 aircraft. Except I wouldn't recommend doing it with a non-GPS aircraft from our line. Chances are, I mean, you'll have incompatibility issues, and also, I have heard reports of people using certain H107 aircraft without GPS, binding it to their 901As and discovering that they can't fly their GPS aircraft anymore with the same transmitter. I don't know how that happens, but heads up, it does happen, so be careful. But you can honestly use this with your H501S, H501A. The only other aircraft I say you couldn't use this with is the H501M and possibly the H216A. I've never tested it with those two, but R&D informed me that it will not work with the H501M for sure, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for the 216A. So, but this guy is a very fun little piece of equipment. So, yeah. No problem, Bob. Uh-oh. Hold on. Okay. Oops. Sorry, David. The admin, I see that the admin accidentally timed you out. That was not intentional. I think she was meaning to go for the other one, if you know what I mean. So my apologies about that. I'm sorry. You will be back. You will be back, and we will, again, really sorry about that. Really, really sorry. Just nothing meant. I think just clicked on the wrong. The messages are really close to each other, so in a hurry, just clicked for the wrong one. Sorry. Okay. No problem. I have the H109S Alpha Advanced Edition with the FPV1TX 2.1.3 firmware. I can't upgrade firmware in this TX without killing my range, but with 2.1.3, I can't view FW version in H109S. Can I still upgrade firmware in H109S? Yes, you can, but be careful. And as I'm pretty sure that you've already noticed, the transmitter does not react well with the latest firmware that we come up with, the H906A. So I do know what you're saying. I don't think you have to worry about that. If you are leery of not being able to see the firmware versions, here's what you can do. You can buy a used H901A, or if you know someone best who does have an H901A, you can bind the aircraft to the H901A and check the firmware there. It's doable. It's the transmitter, not the aircraft. The aircraft should be able to, regardless of whether it's been out for a while, you know, if it was manufactured within the first couple of batches, it should still be able to show its firmware versions given the appropriate transmitter. All right. I've sent 3 requests for an answer very nicely. Why no response? Sorry, I accidentally missed you. Let me go see if I can find you. Hold on. Mike Joyner. Lots of messages. Keep in mind, I have to keep an eye on the chat and answer your questions. So I will miss, you know, at least 1 or 2. I am very surprised I've managed to keep up like this as it is already. Having to do this is not easy. I don't know how how public figures do this. It's just weird. Okay, so you asked, how do you get that transmitter? Which transmitter are you referring to? This one? Okay, this one. Okay, so this is available on the Hubsan official site. Now, last I've heard, US Warehouse should have them in stock, so you should be able to access them. But if there isn't, just go ahead and I think email us for a release date. I will see if we can give a release date. The last I've heard, yes, it should be available on the Hubsan official website. Is it not? It's already listed, from what I know. Oh, God, a lot. Can't find it in the transmitter section. Okay, tell you what, I'm going to have a look at the transmitter section afterwards and after the live stream so that we can give you an answer to that. I am getting a time notice from one of the admins on the chat, or one of the admins in the office. So I will have to end this live stream soon. Let me get to as many other questions as possible. I will see if I can link the transmitter if it's available. If it isn't, then I will say that it will be available at its soonest notice. It just isn't in mass production yet. Okay, couple of questions. Let me select the questions first and then answer them. I only have around 5 minutes left. Oh boy, what do I choose? Okay, so it is on there, just says out of stock. Yeah, because it hasn't been stocked up in the warehouse yet or whatnot. So Okay, what else? How nice it would be to have connectors for new motor replacement. You got to be careful what you're asking for there. Sometimes those sorts of connectors are not as reliable as soldered connections. Okay, will flying close to a cellular phone tower affect the signal of the drone? It might, yes. Depends on whether or not the tower relies on something that is connected to a 2.4, that is more in the range of a 2.4 or 5.8 connection. If you're using a wireless aircraft, might happen, yes. Okay, one last question. I will answer one last question because I gotta go. Let me choose the one that is. What max charge rate is for the Hubsan X4 Pro 7000 mAh? Okay, max charge rate. Let me go and ask the technician to see if he knows, because I don't know the answer to that question. Hold on. Do you have a max charge rate on the H7000?
1C.
1C.
So if a LiPo is 1300 milliamps, then 1C. If it's 2700 milliamps, then
So in multiples of 1.3.
yes. 1C.
Yeah.
You say 1C charge rate.
I meant mAh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
1,300 million.
No, it doesn't matter. If it's a milliamp, it's like 1,000 or 7,000. If it's 5,000 milliamp, you could do 5C. So you could do 5 amps. Charge rate.
Per 1,000 million.
Yeah. Okay. That's how I
Got it. Thank you. Okay, so my technician says on any sort of battery, here's the general rule of thumb for him, and he's been doing this, is to be on the safe side, it's 1C per 1,000 milliamps. So if you have a TX battery that is 1,300 milliamps, for example, you're going to be charging at a max of 1C. If, like, for example, on the 7,000 milliamp battery, then you're going to want to charge at a max of 7C. Max. Take it slow, guys. Take it slow. Anyway, no problem. I gotta go. So the last person who asked the question about the video skipping, that answer is found on the Back to Basics tutorial on how to format and the do's and don'ts of taking photos and videos. So yeah, thank you all for being here today. We appreciate it, and hope that you guys have a nice day. This video will be available as a recording after the end of this live stream, so you can access it at any time. Nice to see all of you guys. Talk to you later.